I'm going to start by doing that demonstration stuff for coming up with new solo ideas using those scales that you now know. So I mentioned one, which was doing a lead on just the one string, which you said you feel comfortable with already, so you don't need to do too much of that if it's not going to create new ideas. But doing the two strings at a time, well, let's do that. So I'm going to start with the high E and B strings. I really hope that you can hear both the backing track and my guitar at the same time. Backing track's fairly clean, got some distortion on, so hopefully you can hear the difference between the two fairly well. Use that sheet that I gave you that has the notes on the fretboard all on one neck. Use that as your guide. Use that as kind of like your cheat sheet. So this way, if you don't have the notes all memorized string by string yet, then you'll be able to use that page to stay with it, or stay within the scales and all that. So here we go, just a little bit of demonstration here. So all on the E and B. Probably a little bit louder. Try to make some big slides or big jumps from one place to the next. Like you can play down here around the 5th fret, and then jump up to the 12th, and then maybe all the way to the opens. And then just change what two strings that you use. I got the camera facing here, and yet the screen where I can see myself is over there, looking all over the place. So like the G and the B string tend to be the most challenging for people. The same idea, just pick two strings. And just play within those scale shapes. So another idea to do, pause this here, another idea to try, you can use 3 strings at a time, or one thing that tends to be fairly challenging, I think can help create some pretty cool sounds, is play one note on one string at a time. So that means you can't play 2 notes on the same string. Every note has to go from one string to the next. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Whoops, I played 2 notes on the same string. I goofed up the drill. This way of practicing solos is great for arpeggio stuff. So I know not all of that was very pretty, but that's just to help you really break out of your comfort zone and find some sounds that you like. Now, let's say you're doing that particular way of approaching improv practice, and you play some notes that sound really good to you, play them again. Play them several times, get that pattern down, so this way you can call upon it whenever you want. Maybe even write it down. Physically write down stuff that you come up with. Because, when you're doing improv stuff, all you're doing is just calling upon things that you've pretty much put in your subconscious already. Just stuff that you've already done time and time again. At least that's how I look at it. You're just calling on your riffs whenever you want. I don't know what that sound just was. Anyway, let's see, other ideas. String skipping. You can practice string skipping. Sorry, I keep something like in my eye bugging me. String skipping while you're doing this. So let's say you use like the E, low E, and the D string. So that's another thing you can do to break things up and try different things. So, show an example here. Going out of key. There we go. So, stuff like that, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're staying in key and having fun. Having fun is important. And it's also helpful to, practice slow a lot of the times. I know you want to play fast, so that's a goal. I think when it comes to, making up solos and getting comfortable with that, it's helpful to practice a lot of those things slow. This allows you to hear what you're doing a little bit better against the chord you're playing to. Another thing I like to advise people when they're trying to get better at leads is think of it like you're trying to sing a song or even learn different vocal melodies on guitars, and that can help create some memorable sounding solos. A lot of times, at least personally, I think a lot of memorable solos are ones that you can actually kind of like sing along to, or you can actually really lock on to a very catchy melody within the solo. And that's one reason why, back to that question you asked about people bad-mouthing shred guitar players. When shred guitarists do solos where it's just like trying to cram in as many notes as possible too often, it's not, it just starts to all sound the same. So there are definitely negative aspects to playing really fast all the time. Things start to sound the same. So I think you'll have a better chance of being really creative with making up leads if you also practice doing them nice and slow. Speaking of nice and slow, in addition to practicing your modes, also all starting all on the A note. And so on. So the metronome practice, and if for some reason I forget to send you a link to the video I did on how to use a metronome, let me know. But I'm going to briefly go over that right now. So, like I mentioned, you're going to start at 60 beats per minute. There are a lot of free metronomes that you can get on your phone. And if you can't get that other metronome website to work, I recommend finding one that does work for you, because unless you can switch to a 5 beat per minute increase on YouTube boom, like that, over and over and over again, you're not going to be getting the most out of the metronome practice. So, like, what I mean by that is, let's say, well, let's just take that example, the first one. So you got your thumb picking. You gotta bump it up 5 beats a minute right away and go again. And bump it up 5 beats a minute again and go. So you want to make sure that you set yourself up to not have to keep doing a bunch of stuff to get to another beat per minute. That's why having a metronome is fantastic. So you have the, well, I think you said it was iPhone. There's got to be a free one that you can use. Got to be one on there. I got an Android. I know there are plenty of free ones on there. I spent a couple bucks. I cut like maybe $2 or $3 to unlock the Pro version one that I have. It's just got a couple more features on there. Definitely worth it, I think. So to really demonstrate this idea, especially like building up speed and whatnot, so you have the other exercise that I recommend starting with just your triplets, especially to make sure that you're fingering this thing correctly. It's very important. If you want to get as fast as you can and as accurate as you can, you got to use the correct fingering for these things. Absolutely. So the second exercise I tabbed out for you. We have, it'll sound like this. So you got your I'm having to repeat it 4 times because it's also going to work on some endurance as well as your speed, because that's going to help with accuracy. And repeating something several times is going to help. But you don't want to stay on the same beat per minute because you're also trying to build up speed, so you got to jump to that next speed right away. So this is what I recommend here. This is a very important thing. Do just the 8th note triplets for that exercise first. And what I mean by 8th note triplet is you're going to have 3 notes every beat. That's how I have the bar lines divided up on this page. You got 3 notes per beat. And that's how you're going to play it until you can get to 240 beats per minute. If you can do that, then you can start doing 16th note triplets starting at the 60 beats per minute. Now, 16th note triplets, you're playing 6 notes a beat, and it would go like this. If you get up to 240 beats per minute with the 8th note triplets, then your body is ready to do the 16th note triplets. And even that might be a little fast sometimes when you're just starting off to do a warm-up, but I goofed up the timing a little bit there. But yeah, as soon as you get that done, bump it up 5 and do it again. And then you bump it up 5 and go again. Now, just one last demonstration, really drive it home. I'm only going to play that exercise with just once through, no repeat. So it's just going to be this. So I can quickly demonstrate how you should be bumping this up. So again, this is just for demonstration purposes. It's still important that you repeat this 4 times. I'm only going to do it once through, just so I can move things along quickly. See, I'm not waiting. I'm just going to the next speed right away. And going again. Watch my thumb. See, it's still going. I'm still using the thumb at this pace. Wrist is starting to kick in a little bit. I start to change what my pivot point is on my arm, hand, and whatnot the faster I go. I don't consciously do it all the time. It just kind of kicks in the faster I get. Still, that's why you're going to start by focusing on the thumb so you get more precise movement, and then eventually you'll be able to start using your wrist a bit more. So it's definitely becoming more wrist at this point. Still some thumb in there, it feels like. Oops. And that's another thing. If you make a mistake, do not continue. As soon as a mistake is made, stop, correct the mistake, and then move on. Because if you do a mistake, let's say you're playing that exercise. I think you get the point. I'm going to stop doing that. But if you let's say you're working on the exercise where you are repeating it 4 times through, and you make a mistake halfway through it, do not keep going. Stop, start over, and then try and do it 100% correct. Because if you continue to play when a mistake is made, you're training yourself to make mistakes. You are telling your hands and whatnot that it's okay to make mistakes. If you want to be as accurate as possible, you have to train yourself to not play after a mistake is made and start over, so this way you're always correcting yourself and you're always focused on playing everything as accurate as possible. Now, if you're doing like a band practice thing, you're on stage, yes, you do need to continue to play after a mistake is made if that happens. But with metronome practice, when you're just trying to get as fast as you can and as accurate as possible, you need to correct mistakes as soon as they're made, and don't just keep playing through them. But this video is already over 17 minutes long. Thinking if there's anything else that needs to be touched on. You can definitely use your scales with metronome practice. That's something I used to do all the time. So think about this. If you haven't done things like 4-note and 3-note coils, even 2-note coils, something I like to use a lot to really get very good finger dexterity going. And it's also really good for picking dexterity, coordination, and whatnot. It's definitely a challenge to do. We're doing 4 and 3-note coils and 2-note coils as well. So we'll talk about that next time, see if you know what those are. And getting more scales, I can do this 3-note per string scale shapes, so you have more options. And I bet there's a website that has certain scales that I can send to you. So because for the most part, most of the stuff like Iron Maiden, they basically stay in those 3 keys that I mentioned, C major. Well, they basically make a lot of things more minor. So I'll say they stay in A minor, E minor, and D minor. So you're just really using the same scales, just in different locations. But, alright, if you think of any other questions, please let me know. And that's right, jot down any questions you have with those videos I'm going to send you to. So, I will see you on Sunday.